All right, and hello everybody, and welcome back. We're continuing our discussion about a human mimicking robot, and this to me is just kind of pretty, and it shows the hydraulic cylinder piston robot. This one was like, how come you keep looking at that other guy? I look pretty cool too, you know. He says I could be a superhero, and why don't you disappear him? Maybe give me a cape. We don't want any robots to feel bad. And you can see he's got some E version of his foot and some flexion of the knee. Actually has a little bit of adduction of the leg. There's his pelvis. We were talking about, I set up a device, I think numerically, that this device allows comparison directly by numbers of what humans do and what the robot could do, or at least what the hydraulic cylinder system could do. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit more. And I had an image of it in KeyShot. And again, I like KeyShot. I think it's just so pretty, but you have to get everything adjusted before it's truly pretty. But the human being, we'll let the mannequin robot demonstrate this for us. The human being sits here and swings this back and forth. And what happens is this screen here displays a value. So all the way to the left is minus 100, and all the way to the right is plus 100. And whatever you've done with it, that's what's here. Up here, it asks for a certain number. Right here, say this would be showing 0 because he's in the midpoint. Let's say it flashed 100. So he needs to move it this way. Okay. And this shows how many milliseconds he has to get there. And at the end of the milliseconds, whatever value he's at, that's the value he's assigned. And so I wanted to look at what I think might be some of the math. But of course, before we do that, I always like to see what's going on. And we can sort of drift down here to see what Bing has for us. Minnesota State Capitol. And there it is, the golden central point of perfection, surrounded by angels of help. These are the robot crowd that's telling us how to make a robot, pointing out what works. These are the pillars of science establishment, holding up electric motors and gearheads. And somewhere beyond the crown of success is an actual human mimicking robot. And a little bit of light is shining through here. It's either the light of further robot development, or it's the light of hydraulic cylinders are going to let you make a human mimicking robot. You just don't know. Anyway, thank you, Bing. So let's go and look at these numbers. And we're going to leave from this and go over to the graphs, but there's one other thing I think we need to talk about. And that is, again, this descriptive bulletin that the poster mannequins are holding up for us on the hydraulic cylinders compared to human muscles. And I have some more stuff to tell you about the valve, but we skip down to this area for the mechanical device that allows comparison of a human and a robot, or at least a robot system. And I did want you to know I have a website. And you go to the menu and you go to discussions about a piston robot business versus robot science, and here's the web page. And I put a few images here and the YouTube videos. We are talking about physical structures that are moving under hydraulic pressure, but any physically real item has the potential that it might hurt somebody. if you are managing a physically real item, it is my advice, manage it in a manner that is legally allowed and reasonable and safe. And if you cannot manage it in that way, my advice is do not create it as a physically real item. And I was considering, as this human being is moving this back and forth, trying to match what's been requested, what characterizes this event? And you don't have too many variables. One is what was the requested number and what was the number that the human being hit on. How many milliseconds were given and how many milliseconds were used. And I was thinking there's two ways of looking at this numeric data. One is learning, which is what is the pattern of how human beings learn how to do this? And the other is performance, and what would be the measure of performance? And I think performance can be given two measurement values. One is how close did you get? So if you were asked to get, say, 100, and what you got was 90, then you were within 10 of the 100. So you're within 10% of the number that was requested. And that could be displayed, the percent that you were within close to what's asked for. And remember, if you were asked for, and I don't think I said, I wanted this to go all the way over here was 200, and all the way over there was minus 200. So 100 is a value that could be asked for. So if you were asked to give 100 and you gave 90, you were within 10%. But if you gave 110, you'd also be within 10%. So it's really the absolute value of the difference. And the other one to look at is the extent to which you use the time that was given to you. So if you were given 100 milliseconds and you only used 10, then you used only 10% of the time that was available. So those are the two performance metrics I chose, was the percent of how close you were to the value that was asked for and percent of how much of your time that was given to you did you use. The suggestion being we want you to move fast and be accurate. So let's go look at a graph. And this was my graph. I created it in CorelDRAW so this is percent of the time interval. So this is where you used 100%. This is where you used 5%. And down here is the percent to which the value you chose was near to the value that was requested. And I think human beings would start out here where they're basically using up all their time and they're not getting values very close to what was asked for. And each of these, there's dots here, each of these dots is a session where they wander around with getting the values better, and they slowly get the time better, and they move themselves down until they're in this zone where they're not using very much time of the time that was given to them, and they're choosing values that are close. And the way it would pick the time is the clock would start, and when you stopped moving the device, that's when your time would end, except humans have a little trouble fully stopping. So it's when you started moving it really slowly, it would decide that was where you had finished. So if you moved it really slowly and started moving it again, then it would add that to your time. And let's look at, I don't know, would a human being do? I don't know. It's my guess. Let's look at what the robot people would say. And this is my thinking what the robot people would say. They would say you've got two issues here. One is a mechanical system where that valve is running that piston and the piston is moving that thing around. But you also have an AI where you went to the AI and said, hey, here it is, figure it out. And I think that the robot people will say, you can't treat an AI that way. Well, I'm going to say the robot people will have three answers. One answer is you can't treat an AI like that. The AI was not going to be able to figure this out. They might say, yeah, well, maybe the AI could, but you have a mechanical system with this valve and that hydraulic cylinder, and that mechanical system is never going to be able to do what human beings do. And I think the third option from the robot people will be, Maybe the AI could have done it, and maybe your mechanical system could have done it. But the way you've put this together with the AI and the mechanical system, they will have an endless loop of failure because the two of them just can't work together like you think. That's not how anything works. And their opinion of what will happen is it will just wander around out here 40 years in the wilderness between getting bad results on how close it got, sometimes not taking very much time, but mostly just out here, not near to the area of success. That's what I think the robot people are going to say. And this is my graphical prediction or thinking of what might be possible when you give this to the AI. It will wander around out here in the wilderness of taking a lot of time and getting bad results, walking through the wilderness, talking to Moses, trying to find the burning bush that leads them. And the AI will just mess around, and the AI, as it does this, at some point the AI will say, oh, I've figured out how this works. And it will go like this and straight down to very, very good scores. Because somewhere in here, the British used to say, those Americans, during the war, those Americans, they will always go through every possible wrong way of doing something. But at the end, they do finally get to the right answer. And I think there's a chance that the AI, after wandering in the wilderness, will suddenly again say, oh, I know what I need to do, and just bang. It won't be the type of learning curve that humans have, but this is all just a prediction. I don't know what's going to happen. And we'll just have to see, I guess. And we'll go back and look at something else. And this does exist in SketchUp. We can go look at that. That's where I created it, was in SketchUp. And so here it is in SketchUp, where I was actually moving it between all the way to the left, midline, all the way to the right. And I have the little guy here who's running it. And SketchUp can actually export this as an FBX file. And I just can't decide. I mean, I don't know if anybody would want to make this. I think this is a great project. I think easily a senior project for a robot and a college engineering student, if they have to do a senior project, to build this and see what happens. I mean, particularly if you made a paper out of it, I think you'd get a lot of citations. People would be interested in this. I do have on my website, let's see, about a robot, and then on walking, and then I have a download on it. This I was talking about CNC. Boy, CNC, those people, they want it to be step files, which I'm not good at. But right here, see, if you click on this, you can download all the parts of the robot, so you could 3D print the whole robot yourself if you wanted to. And so I'm thinking maybe I should go back to robot business versus robot science. Yeah, I put it there too. But maybe I should put a little FBX here of this, so that you could see how it's put together. And you'd also have the magic hand, which is always fun. Anyway, she has taken her wrist and pointed to her watch and is waving it. This is her signal, I think, that we are done. So I'll stop and we will start another video. I did put the robot piston testing board on the website at that web page. I asked her if I could have enough time to do that. She said okay. It's 198 megabytes. It's a zip file. You need to extract it. When you extract it, it's 607 megabytes for the FBX file and there's a texture file.